Are you fucking kidding me, man? No, seriously, are you fucking kidding me? First Mushroom Head, then Trapped, and now fucking Static X? I'm sorry, I thought this was 2020, not 2000. Fucking motherfucking bullshit. Note to self, never time travel again. You heard right, ladies and gentlemen. Static X, despite the fact that it's 2020, despite the fact that the world has moved on from this brand of early 2000s nu metal, despite the fact that Wayne Static has been dead in the ground for just over 5.5 years now, is still kicking. And they've got a brand new studio album, Project Regeneration Volume 1. I'm not going to sit here and pretend for a moment that I was looking forward to this, because I wasn't. I've been dreading this, in fact, arguably more so than new albums from the aforementioned Mushroom Head and Trapped. I know some people that have a little bit of a soft spot for Static X, mostly because they kind of acted as a gateway band into the broader spectrums of heavy metal music, but I myself have always seen Static X as an awkward and cheesy amalgamation of the worst aspects of 90s and early 2000s heavy metal. Like the worst sonic and visual elements of Korn, Rob Zombie, Coal Chamber, Ministry, The Prodigy, forcefully bound and stitched together in such a way that so much of Static X's records feel dated even by the standards of the times in which they were released. I mean, by the time Static X released their sophomore album in 2001, most nu metal and alternative metal bands are either on the way out or on the verge of a major transformation. Now, that's not to say there aren't some things to appreciate about Static X. I mean, the fact that they survived for just over a decade playing an inherently dated style of music says a lot about their determination, their passion, their work ethic, and I'll give credit to some members of Static X who have done some pretty cool things outside of the band, namely bassist Tony Campos, who has performed and made records with Prong, Soulfly, Ministry, Possessed. But even with this information in mind, if I were to purely hypothetically make a nu metal tier list, Static X would be at the very, very, very bottom. But I guess I must be in some kind of vocal minority, because here we are with Project Regeneration Volume 1, the band's first studio album in 11 years, featuring the final recordings of the band's late singer, songwriter, guitarist, and frontman, Mr. Wayne Static. Make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, despite the physical absence of Wayne Static, this is still very much a Static X record through and through. So much so that when I first started to listen to this album, I had an almost, for lack of a better word, Vietnam-style flashback. Except instead of visions of helicopters dropping bombs and soldiers praying to God for mercy, I saw a bunch of kids with chain wallets and hair gel at Ozfest, paying $18 for a bottle of water. You know, you got songs like Hollow and Worth Dying For that, despite their industrial influences, could have easily fit on any Korn record from the 2000s. Namely because it seems that Wayne Static in these final moments was borderline obsessed with recreating the vocal antics of Jonathan Davis. You got songs like Accelerate and All These Years that try to use more industrial flourishes to create suspense, to create tension, to create some kind of spooky, cyberpunk kind of aura. Perhaps, dare I say, in the vein of a more modern act like Code Orange. But they just don't hit nearly as hard. They're not nearly as creative. You have a lot of super edgy lyrics that are trying way too hard to be as menacing and as provocative as possible. And I guess on top of that, Static X's new approach to industrial and nu metal is to just fill the sound with as many synths and cymbals and weird noises as possible, as there isn't a single moment on this record of silence, of air, of breathing room. I understand what they're going for. I am again reminded of Underneath from Code Orange, but again on that record, all the riffs are given room, all the melodies are given room, no one thing overpowers another, whereas here everything just swarms the forefront at the same time. It can become genuinely overwhelming on a number of tracks. Take for instance My Destruction, which has a lot of very big industrial blast beats and vocal samples and aggressive melodies. Or Ostego Placebo, which has a really harsh, almost Combie Christ kind of vibe and spirit to it. Or Terminator Oscillator, which showcases such a blatant, unabashed love for 90s techno and EDM that it could very well have fit within the opening credits of Blade. You've got Dead Souls as well, which tries way too hard to create some kind of emotional finale for the record, blending some edgy industrial rock with acoustic guitars and some dramatic choruses. It's awkward, it's out of place, and if I was given the decision to cut at least one song from the record, it would be this. The band tend to repeat a lot of different tricks and techniques across the record, and unfortunately, as a result, with time, a lot of these songs, even the most energetic and volatile ones, eventually bleed together into one big, noisy, industrial, ham-fisted mess. I remember at one point Static X talked about having some special guests from members of Devil Driver, Dope, Ministry to contribute to this record to finish some of these tracks. I don't really know why that didn't happen. I guess they found the tapes they needed from Wayne, but maybe it should have happened regardless, because I think that those special guests could have done a lot to bring a little bit of extra outside influence into the mix, a little bit of variety, a little bit of subtle spice. And to be entirely honest with you, there were just a lot of moments where I really questioned the integrity and honesty of this new Static X on this record. Like, if I remember correctly, Wayne ended Static X because of really unhealthy relationships with some of these guys. They were fighting over the band rights, they were fighting over drug abuse and alcohol abuse. And it does feel inherently weird not only for Static X to be back, but for them to be back and to have a live singer dressed up in Wayne Static cosplay playing his songs and rushing together these demos for a new album that, let's be honest, none of us asked for. I think most people have forgotten about Static X for now. I can't help but get the feeling as a result that this is just kind of a quick paycheck for some of these guys, namely Tony Campos, who, let's be honest, between all the projects we mentioned earlier, shouldn't have to worry about whatever the hell Static X is up to. It just feels and looks like such a blatant cash-in to me, like as if the entire goal for this project, for this album, for everything surrounding this new version of Static X is to pander to your nostalgia. For me, this is just a huge flop. I can very honestly say I didn't enjoy a single moment of this record. This is Static X, I think, at their most disingenuous, at their most boring, at their most plain, at their most ridiculous and awkward. So I'm going to give this thing a 1 out of 5. I just think it's terrible. I really tried to pull something good out of this, even just for the sake of not shitting on Wayne Static and his legacy, but yeah, I just couldn't really find anything here. I'm not entirely sure how fans of Static X will feel about this. I feel like the absence of Wayne Static would be a dividing point for a lot of fans, but I can tell you that regardless of how you feel about the absence of Wayne Static, previous Static X records are a lot more genuine, a lot better thought out, and have a lot more character and, dare I say, even originality to them. This album combines everything that made me dislike rock music as a kid for so long. Unfortunately, the title implies that there could be at some point be a volume 2. I really hope that that isn't the case, because I don't know if I could handle doing another record like this. But I suppose we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. For now, Volume 1 is a 1 out of 5. This is a terrible record. It is a reminder of the absolute worst era of mainstream rock and metal music, and it might be one of my least favorite albums of the year. God, that Inter Arma cover album better be fucking good, because I need something to wash the taste of all this fucking nu metal crap out of my mouth. Holy fucking shit. Alright, see ya, bye. If you like what you saw here today, press subscribe. I got nothing, I'm tired, I want to go to sleep. Fuck off.